This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, show 246. Yeah, 246.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Ramsey Majaba. I am a sales engineer out of Ottawa, Canada, and I found my calling in helping people, it seems. So I get a lot of questions, and it's a solo show, by the way, today. And I get a lot of questions from a lot of different people at all stages of their career, whether they're beginners or looking to become SEs, rookie SEs or experienced SEs. And even I get to just chat with people who have been doing this for a long time, brainstorm, come up with ideas together. And I wanted to share some of the 15 questions that I get asked the most, whether it's on my YouTube channel, comments in the on videos. And if you didn't know, I do have a YouTube channel, We the Sales Engineers. Let me double check if that's how you find it. Yeah, We the Sales Engineers. So you can search We the Sales Engineers and you'll find me. So that's one. Whether it's through my coaching service, and in case you didn't know, I do offer coaching. Check out the SE hotline on wethesalesengineers.com, and you can get coaching if you're looking for that. Or through conversations on LinkedIn, whatever. So I get a lot of questions. And I'm going to go through some of the most common questions that I get. By the way, these are some of the ways I get ideas for videos on my YouTube channel. So if you have questions, please ask them. And I can do an Ask Me Anything YouTube video or podcast, kind of like this. Although right now what I did was go through my YouTube channel, go through my LinkedIn, go through the conversations that I've had with different people, and come up with 15 questions that I get asked a lot. And a lot of it are from beginner SEs or people who want to become SEs. Some of it are from beginner SEs, and some of it are from advanced, but not too many. Those are more like conversations. So let's start off. I mean, the first question that I get often enough that I created a video for is SE the same as tech sales? So I do have a video. I'll leave a link to that in the description or in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, I might have a link somewhere here, but just look at the show notes, wethesalesengineers.com/show 246. Is SE the same thing as tech sales? Now, tech sales encompasses a lot of different things. That's why John Kerr wrote the book Mastering Technical Sales. Chris White, his company, his corporation, his website is Tech Sales Advisors, because tech sales, generally speaking, involves SDRs and BDRs. SDR stands for Sales Development Representative. BDR is Business Development Representative. They're the people cold calling, setting up appointments for account managers, which are also part of tech sales. Account managers have a million different names as well. It could be regional sales manager, it could be account executive, whatever. But it includes that. And then you have sales engineering. So tech sales usually involves those three. They could have more, like customer success, whatever. But generally speaking, it's those three. Now, from what I'm seeing, is a lot of boot camps are hijacking, or a lot of different places are hijacking the term tech sales to mean SDR and BDR. So they're taking the first thing that tech sales does, like the first thing involved in tech sales, and calling that tech sales. So a lot of you are asking me that question because I get a lot of emails or, hey, like I'm looking at this boot camp, I'm looking to become an SE, and they have this tech sales boot camp. Should I go into it? Not if you want to become an SE. If you want to be an SDR, BDR, look into that. There's a question that I'm asked quite a bit about boot camps, so I'll come to that in a second. But generally speaking, that's what I think. Tech sales is not just SDRs and BDRs. It's everything related to sales in tech. So there is that. I have a YouTube video, again, check that out. So question number 2 is, how many hours on average do you work? And that's kind of interesting question because I have my work, like I'm an employee of a company. I also have We the Sales Engineers, and I don't. I work on both, and I work long hours, very long hours. So I'm not kind of the representative for that question. Also, I've been shifted more into sales than sales engineering. But generally speaking, from what I've seen, depending on how you organize your time, you could work 30 hours a week if you were well organized, but then you have the other 10 hours for education, for learning, for building relationships. So you if you can work 60 hours a week on occasion. You could work 30 hours a week, but then you'd work the other 10 hours just doing stuff for your work. So I mean, a minimum of 10 hours, a minimum of 40 hours a week from my experience, um, because you're sitting there. I mean, you have to do some stuff. I don't know if you want to count driving or flying as work hours, but you could. So it's very different from one person to another. I don't have a very good answer to that question because, well, for the reasons I already stated. Another question is, I don't have any tech experience. Can I become a sales engineer? Like, and the answer to that question is, well, it depends on what kind of experience you have already. I mean, if you don't have any tech experience, doesn't mean you haven't had any experience whatsoever. It also doesn't mean you don't have technology experience. I mean, you might not be able to configure or create a program from scratch or build a network, but have you used any software in the past? I see a lot of like people from HR trying to break in. It's like, hey, I have no tech experience. And then I ask the question, all right, what software have you used? And they name a bunch of like Workday, they name a bunch. It's like, how well versed are you in this? Yeah, I'm an expert. It's like, well, you do have tech experience in that. And that could be the aspect that you go after and try to get a job in that, whether it's at that company or a competitor of that company where you use the software. And that's the same for many other jobs or careers that you do use. Everybody uses software these days. So can you translate that and try to get into that industry? Generally speaking, you need three things to break into an industry. You need industry knowledge, customer knowledge, or technical knowledge. And if you're like, let's say, an HR person, you have the HR industry knowledge. You are a customer, so you have the customer knowledge. And if you're trying to use that software, you have the technical knowledge to an extent. You could learn more, and you need to highlight your ability to learn. So, but if you're an HR and you're trying to break into IT, and you don't have any of those expertise, then it'll be much more difficult. So you might just have to be a little bit more strategic in which career you want to break into or which industry you want to break into. Number 4 is, what is your views on boot camps? I am torn. I personally don't like boot camps. And full disclosure, I did a boot camp. I offered a boot camp to some clients on my end, and I did not enjoy it. Not because I did not enjoy it because a lot of times the person is not ready to get a job within a certain amount of time, so I have to say no. Like, you're not ready. You have to work on these things before you come to me. That's one. I find that other boot camps say yes to anybody, so they pay the money and then they don't get jobs. I there are a lot of people who go to boot camps who end up getting jobs, and there are a lot who come to me afterwards because they can't get jobs. It's hard to say. It's not a guarantee. That's the thing about boot camps. It's not a guarantee. It is a lot of money. If you have the money for it, I don't know. Like, I really, it's I've I'm trying to be political and as like politically correct, I guess is the term. I don't want to say anything negative about boot camps because it may have helped some people. I just don't like them. To the point where I stopped offering my boot camp because I'd rather I'd rather build a long-term relationship with the people and guide them long-term with my clients on how to get the job than it is to do like, hey, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is, and then you're on your own. And it, I just don't like them. I don't like them because I get a lot of people who come to me afterwards for help. And the thing is, you kind of have to take responsibility and ownership of getting your job, right? And the boot camp that I offered is a little bit different from the other boot camps that are out there. I teach people how to. I used to teach people how to fix their resume, how to do well in their interviews, and I focus on that because I found that wherever they go, they'll teach them sales engineering the way they want to. Whereas the other boot camps out there, they're focused more on teaching sales engineering and marketing themselves. I found that. So you have to take ownership of what, even if you go through a boot camp or not. Afterwards, you're gonna have to put in the work, and that's the reason I didn't enjoy my boot camps. Like, hey, all right, someone's ready to go. All right, let's do this, and then they disappear, and I have to follow up and follow up, and I just didn't like that feeling because you most boot camps are like taking 20 people in, and if 10 people or 5 people get a job, they made their money, and I don't like that feeling. Like, what about the rest? Even though it's not their fault, it's not the boot camp's fault that the rest are not putting in the effort. So I'd rather you put in the effort before you go through a boot camp, just to see if you want to put in the effort. I guess my biggest pet peeve with boot camps isn't necessarily the boot camps. It's more prove to yourself that you will put in the effort afterwards because it's not automatic. You're not going to go through a boot camp and get a job. You're going to go through a boot camp, you're going to learn about something, and then you're going to have to put in the effort to get the job anyways. So I guess that's the summary of it. Question number 5. If you have any more questions about that, connect with me. I'm happy to help. Question number 5. I find it difficult to build relationships with customers. I guess that's similar to another question that I have down here. I'm an introvert. I have a hard time building relationships with people. Should I get into sales engineering? I'm an introvert. I have a hard time building relationships with groups of people. Personally, I'm not repeating the question. I'm just saying this is me. If it's a group setting, I have a hard time building relationships because there's too much noise and too many people around me. I don't enjoy that. But I'm very good at building relationships one-on-one. So even if you're an introvert, like, are you an introvert to the point where you don't talk to anybody? Or are you an introvert, but you can have a conversation with one person or 2 people at the same time? Um, Generally speaking, the best way to build relationships is to ask questions. And that I get that. Like, hey, I can do small talk, but then after 5 minutes, it kind of fizzles and I don't have anything else to say. The thing about building relationships is that you don't have to say much. You can ask questions. You can be curious. Dale Carnegie says if you want to be interesting, you have to be interested. And that's the part that I had to learn where I didn't have to tell him my life story. I didn't have to tell him that I love basketball or football or whatever sports or my latest vacation. Most people don't care. What they care about is them, generally speaking. And it's not because they're selfish or anything, it's just that's a subject matter they know very well. So it's easy for them to talk about it. So if you're having a conversation, if you start with small talk and someone says something to the effect like, "Yeah, I got married last year," like, "Oh yeah, how was that? How was the wedding? Did you guys go on a honeymoon?" There's a million questions you can ask about a specific topic. You just have to be curious enough to think. You don't have to share your story right away. You can wait for them to ask questions, or in many cases, actually, I've done that on interviews where I get on an interview and I'm not asked a single question because I'm doing all the asking. And by the end of the interview, they're like, "You know what? This is one of the best interviews I've had. I would love to have, I'd love for you to talk to somebody else on the team." It doesn't happen all the time, but when you're curious enough, when you want to know, when you're interested in knowing, you can build relationships one-on-one easily. If you tell me you can't build relationships whatsoever, I would suggest that you go test that theory out first, like with families and friends. Can you go sit with a family member or a friend and just ask questions, not share anything? Just they say something interesting, try to learn more about them. And if you can do that, then maybe graduate to some stranger. And then before you say, no, I can't be a sales engineer. Uh, oh, okay. So going back to that question. So I just answered a different question. I'm an introvert. I have a hard time building relationships with people. Should I get into sales engineering? I'm going to go back to I find it difficult to building relationships with customers. Although I work in a large corporation, I work with enterprise. And I find myself conducting maximum 3 discovery sessions. This is a very specific question. 3 discovery sessions with the client, and each one of these sessions are with different people. And then, based their requirement, I deliver the demo, and that's about it with a client. On to the next one. Could it be because I'm a junior SE? It sounds more like it's a transactional deal. When you're working with enterprise, especially with larger companies, you kind of follow through. You build relationships after the sale as well. It's not just, I just did the discovery, I did the demo, and then I'm done. One thing to think about is during the demo, you're gonna get asked questions. Some of them you will know, some of them you won't. So you might want to take a note of all the questions you're being asked. And then after the demo, you can send follow-ups for these questions. Like, hey, you asked me this question, this is the answer. You asked this question, this is the answer. And you can invite people out to lunch. I mean, this sounds like a you thing, right? It sounds like you're not taking people out to lunch. You're not reaching out to see if they're doing well. That you might need to take more initiative and take ownership of your customers. It sounds like you don't have ownership of your customers, and you basically need to do that so that you can actually start building those relationships. And the next time you have a deal, you might need less discovery because you already know a lot about them. I mean, building relationship doesn't just happen. Like everything. I mean, no, it's kind of like marriage. When you get married, it doesn't mean that the work is done. It means the work just began. This is when you're going to start making sure that you continue to be married for as long a period as possible for the rest of your life, hopefully. So when you're building relationships, a discovery doesn't build relationship. Your discovery is kind of a business setting. You're sitting there across someone, you're trying to get information from them, which they may not want to give because many reasons. They don't want to sound weak. They don't want you to take advantage of the information you're getting. A million reasons. So after the discovery, grab a lunch with them, grab coffee. And they may say no, but they will definitely not say yes if you don't ask. So ask them out on a date, if you will. And the one thing that annoys me about salespeople is when they take people out to lunch, they immediately start talking about work. As sales engineers, we don't have to. We can just, again, going back to the I have a hard time building relationships, ask questions about them, about their lives, get to know them. And at some point, they might just give you information on their own. And although it's not, the purpose is to build relationships, not necessarily to like suss out information. So just take initiative, you know. I actually need to reach out to that person and tell them that, like word for word, I guess. All right, question number, I guess 7 now. I don't know many things. When should I start applying to jobs? Right now. I mean, the best way to apply to jobs isn't necessarily to apply to jobs, is to have connections, is to build a network. So start building your network right now. Reach out to SEs, SE managers, SE directors. Reach out to salespeople, sales managers, sales directors, and try to build relationships same as above. Like understand what the role is about. Understand what it is that you need to work for a company like theirs, not necessarily theirs. You're not reaching out to them to apply to a job. You're reaching out to them to learn from them. So there's that. How did I become an SE? How did you, Ramsey, become an SE? Well, I was a network design engineer. I was severely underpaid. I was not overworked, but I was doing a senior person's job. And I just got fed up because I wasn't getting the raise that I wanted. And I started applying to different roles. I applied for a long time. And then I found a job that had a lot of my, I guess, my technical knowledge, routing, switching, that sort of thing. And also they mentioned specifically some of the tools that I need to know, and I already knew some of that. And that was on third-party recruiters posting on LinkedIn. So I applied to that. Within 10 minutes, I found the same posting by the company directly. And that company was not a vendor of ours, but they were trying to break in and become a vendor of the company that I worked for. So I applied to that as well. Never heard from the third party recruiter, but I heard from the company directly. Mainly, and that's just a theory of mine. One of the requirements that they had was 3 to 5 years of sales engineering experience, which I didn't have. Obviously, I wasn't a sales engineer before. So when I applied to the headhunter, they scratched me off the list right then and there. When I applied to the company, they saw that I worked for the one of the largest companies that they want to break into, and they thought that was a good opportunity. So they reached out to me, and I interviewed with them directly. Um, I interviewed with them, and I met someone who was interviewing with them at the same time from that same company that I worked for, and he had much more pre-sales experience than I did. And the story that I hear is that they verbally hinted that they would offer him the role. He rejected them, and then they offered me the role. So I wasn't even their first choice, but I got it, and I've been in SE since, and well, in sales since, and I've been happy about it. So it doesn't matter if you're second place, as long as you get what you want. Which is kind of a weird thing to say as someone who's very competitive. All right, question number 9: should I get certified? If so, with what? Should I get certified? Depends. Well, here's the thing about certifications. I don't find them very useful in the general sense. I mean, if you look at AWS Solution Associate Certificate, and that's something I'm working on right now, or at least I'm looking at. If I mean, there's so much stuff in there, and even if you worked for AWS, you might not, or if you worked using AWS, if you worked for a company and you use AWS as your infrastructure, as your cloud provider, you might not use everything that you're learning in the certificate. So it's not necessarily fully useful. I mean, there are some things that are useful, but some things that are just good to know, but you're going to be tested on them. Now, the thing about certifications that I see that are useful, especially for people in different stages. If you're trying to break into tech and you don't have any tech experience, if you learn that, if you do that, you show that you can learn, you show that you have AWS certification. That's a positive thing, right? You can use that in your resume, in your interviews, to differentiate you from other people who might not have technical know-how. That's one. If you already are a sales engineer, or if you're already in tech and you're trying to get another job, if all things are equal between you and another candidate, and one of you has the certification, that might be what tips the scale over to one side or another. So, should you get certified? If you have time, if you have the knowledge, if you have the money to do it, yes, it's not a bad thing. Now, I get that. If so, like, hey, what should I get certified in? Well, there isn't one answer for that. It depends on what you want. Generally speaking, AWS encompasses a lot of what uh, IT individuals do, and developers, right? Because you can have a developer certification on AWS. So it encompasses a lot of different things. Now, if you're looking for specifically, let's say you want to break into Salesforce, that's the company that you want to break into. Salesforce has certifications that you can go through. Why not do that? Uh, so it's really dependent. If you like, it's a general thing, and you don't know where you want to go, and you just want a certification in your tool belt. AWS Solution Architect Associate is a certification you can go after. It is difficult. There's a lot of information. There's like 40 hours of videos that you can watch. So that's a full week of videos without any breaks. So you can do that. But I would recommend that you pick kind of an industry that you want to go after and find certificates within that industry. Okay, question number 10, and this is usually from like experienced, semi-experienced SEs, maybe a couple years into their job. I want to be seen as a leader in my industry. How do I do that? Well, one, become a leader within your team, right? What do leaders do? Basically, leaders lift other people up to do their job better. At least that's my definition. And I'm not talking about bosses, I'm talking about leaders. Leaders help other people become better. Leaders lead by example, they show what they're supposed to do. So within your organization, what can you do to be a leader? Well, you can be helpful to other people. You can take the hard jobs. If there's a project coming up and it's hard, nobody wants it, then that's your chance to actually jump in and do it. Uh, that's one way to do it. Another way is if you want to be a leader within the industry outside of your company, you might need to share knowledge outside. And there's a concept of like thought leadership, which I don't like. I mean, yeah, like if you go on LinkedIn, if you run into an issue and you learn something, can you share that on LinkedIn for the general population? That will help you become viewed as a leader within your team. But like if you want to be a leader, you have to do leadership things. You have to do the hard jobs that nobody else wants. You have to be the one staying late working on stuff. You have to be the one volunteering to help others in different aspects. Let's say one of fellow SE went on vacation and someone needs to jump in to do a discovery or a demo or a customer meeting. You could be that person. You could be that leader. If someone said like there's a lot of what groups, whether it's on Slack, Teams, email, where people just ask questions like, "Hey, how do I do this?" or "How can I configure this?" You can be the first one to answer and show that leadership there. So these are a few things that you can do. I mean, we can have it could be very specific to one person over another, so we can have that discussion if you're looking for it. That's not even English, but we can have that discussion if you're interested. Question number 12. Got feedback that my demo sucks and I'm not sure why. Well, I get that a lot. And my question is, well, why didn't you ask why does your demo suck? What's the feedback that you got beyond that your demo sucks? Because that's not very helpful feedback. And based on that, we can figure out what is it that you did. Now, generally speaking, what I've seen, people either read scripts instead of interact with customers or interact with. A lot of times, these demos are like based on a training session, or sometimes you just have to like you're doing a demo to your manager who know more about the product than you, especially if you're new. Or it's not like the customer where they know less and you're there to help them. Or they say like, hey, don't ask. You're not allowed to ask questions. Just do your demo. Which if someone's doing a demo, they're asking questions, generally speaking. But I would ask step number one is why does it suck? Right? What aspects of it suck? Did I focus more on on features than I focused on benefits? Did I share any stories? I mean, we can go through that. And there's a bunch of ways you can look at your demo and evaluate yourself. Maybe I'll create a checklist for you. But that's something that you need to do. A lot of times people just focus on clicking every button instead of telling the story. So tell a story. 13. Do you need to travel as a sales engineer? No. There are different sales engineers. There are inside sales engineers. There are field sales engineers. Inside sales engineers are usually in an office all day, at work, not at home. Although during the pandemic it was at home. But it could be, well, I guess it could be either. But generally speaking, you're at work at least a few days a week. And you're just receiving calls, invites to do demos for customers. Which for that you're not traveling. Field sales engineers. You have generalist sales engineers and you have specialist sales engineers. And other companies call them different things. I know VMware calls their generalist core SEs, and their specialists, I think they call them specialists. Anyways, if you're a generalist sales engineer, you have a territory. My territory is Ottawa, Canada. Well, it's Eastern Canada, but 90% of my customers are in Ottawa. So I don't have to travel. I have to drive to customer sites. I have to take people out to lunch. So I stay within Ottawa, and I don't have to travel as much. I do. I used to travel maybe once a quarter for a team like training or whatever somewhere. But generally speaking, it's not every day. It's not every week. It's not every month. Now, if you're a core SE and your territory is much larger than mine, and your customers are dispersed, you might have to travel. If you're a specialist SE, you generally have a bigger territory that you need to support. So you might need to travel there as well. I know some of the specialist SEs in my previous company, at least, they were traveling almost every day. We never saw them in the office. Let's just put it that way. So pick whichever sales engineering you want. The question number 34. I'll track. I have a hard time saying no to my salesperson. What can I do? The thing about saying no is that you don't actually have to say the words no, but you can offer alternatives. Like, hey, SE, come do a demo. All right, what do they want to see? You do the discovery with the account manager, and if they don't have information, it's like, hey, my demo is gonna suck, and I'm not gonna be able to help you sell based on the information that you just provided me. So instead of saying no, you're telling them like why you're saying no without saying the word no. And then you offer alternatives like, hey, can we jump on another call instead of doing the demo that day? Can we use it as a discovery call so I can actually understand better? Um, or can I spend the first half hour chatting with the customer, and if I'm able to do the demo on the spot, I'm happy to do it. And saying no is not about. I mean, you must have a reason to say no. You're not saying no out of spite, right? So, what is the reason you're saying no? What is the alternative, and how does any of that benefit the salesperson themselves? So, I would focus on that instead of just saying no. What books should I read? Question number 14. I have a YouTube video about that, and that's usually my answer. I share that YouTube video, but here, yeah, you might want to watch that video. I'll leave the link in the show notes. Mastering Technical Sales is the SE Bible. Everyone should have it. It's more of like I use it. It's hard to read cover to cover because it's big, but it's more of kind of a university book where if you have questions, you go look at certain situations and read. Uh, the most important book that I've read for sales engineering is The 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers. Full disclosure, I'm friends with Chris, but it's a great book. So I would read that. Also, I would read Demo to Win because it talks a lot about like the strategies of doing a demo, but it also covers the discovery, which most other demo books don't. So I would read those two books as those. I would have those 3 books. Read 2 to start with right away. But check out the YouTube video. It has a lot more information. Question number 15. What is the most important skill to have as a sales engineer? There isn't one. But I'm going to say like the 2 that I like to focus on are communication and the ability to read, ability to learn. The reason I say communication is our job as sales engineers is mostly communication, whether it's through a demo, whether it's communicating with our salespeople, our product managers, our managers. That's one of the skills that we need to really grasp. And everything we say to salespeople, to customer, whoever it is, everything we say to people is important. The way we say it, our tone. If we're writing an email, the tone of the email. Uh, Everything we do is all about communication. So I would say that is the most important one. And the ability to learn is, well, technology is always changing. There's always a new feature. There's always a new reason for doing something. We need to have that to be able to actually continue being good sales engineers and not become obsolete like the technology that we used to sell. So there's that. That's 15 questions. I get asked quite a bit, and I figured I'll just put them here. If you want me to do another Ask Me Anything, if you want me to do a live session with that, let me know. I would love to learn more about what you guys need versus what I think you need. So that will be very helpful to me. If you did like it, make sure to share this video with as many people as you can. Merry Christmas, by the way. And this will come out after New Year's. Yeah, so Happy New Year, everybody. And I will see you next time. With that, I'm signing off.